What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the No World Order Podcast IG Live Edition. Today is July 28th, 2020. Right now, we are waiting on Zach to pop on in, and we are going to have a conversation about something local. I'm excited about this one. I had never heard about this until a couple of days ago. It was brought to my attention, and now I'm excited to get it checked out. Here's Zach, so let's get it going. And there he is.
Yo, yo.
Yo. There we go. I don't know if you saw, but I got the new shirt on.
Nice. Nasty.
What's that?
Nasty.
Yeah, because NASA is nasty.
Nasty is a bunch of nasty Nazis.
That kind of leads me into the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about. Shout out to the American Comedy Company, kind of letting us get back to some sort of normalcy. I mean, by no means was it anything normal. The event was nothing normal. But Saturday night they held this little comedy event, and Sam Tripoli was the headliner. And yeah, you want to recap anything with that? I have the comedian's name, so
Okay, good.
yeah.
Yeah, no, everybody, all the comics were great. It was cool to be outside doing some shit.
Yeah.
Like outside of the house in a new place. I'm not a gas lamp guy, but it was cool just to be down there. And it seemed it's kind of like a cool summer thing. Like we were outside on a summer evening. It was warm. I had a few drinks, it was cool, and we weren't social distancing. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but we weren't social distancing, and most of us weren't wearing masks. I think there was like one.
Yeah. Yeah, if people wanted to, they could, but it felt like a majority of people were kind of not wearing the mask. And yeah, like you said, not social distancing. There was, not a ton of people. They kept it limited, but what would you say? There was like rows of 4 with like maybe 10 rows, maybe? So maybe like 32 to 40 people, maybe something like that. Somewhere around there. But yeah, it felt cool to be around people. I've been like so isolated for so long and only really see you or my family. And yeah, it was cool to kind of go out and check out an event, be in downtown. I know the Padres were playing that evening, so we walked down to Petco Park because we got there super early. And I just love being at Petco. I mean, I don't really like being down in that general area as well, but Petco Park and the Padres are just starting their season, so I was excited to kind of be down there for that. But yeah, we had the host. I'm gonna take the headphones off. We had the I can't, because then I can't hear you. Fuck.
No, I'm fucking around. That was
Oh, dude, I was like, what the fuck happened? Because I'm hearing like static in my headphones, and I was like, dude, did something go out right now? But anyway, the first guy that we saw was this guy named Prozac Nathan, and he was dressed as Wuhan Solo. So that kind of just made me laugh, his little joke about that. Then we had a younger guy, Colin Walsh, who I believe he said he was 25 years old, and I think he was more of a local kid. So that was pretty cool. No, nothing.
No.
Oh, okay. And then we had Zane Helberg, who was from LA, who I think he said he was like 35 years old, and he had that bit about the divorce thing and all of that. And then my favorite, well, besides Sam, Tino Sanchez, the guy who did the musical parodies and stuff. And oh man, I've been watching his stuff the last couple of days now on his IGTV. He has a couple of his songs up there, so I've been checking those out. And then we had Sam Tripoli. What do you think he did? He did probably about 40 minutes, 45 minutes maybe?
Maybe. I was thinking like a half an hour, but it might have been longer than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of got lost in the time, and then I know I kind of had to piss the last like 10 minutes or so. So I was like, oh, this last little bit is taking forever. And, it made it a little uncomfortable for me, which is unfortunate, but I still had a really good time. And then afterward, we were able to hand off a couple of our stickers to him. I bought the shirt, and yeah, man, he's super cool. What's that?
We took pics with them.
Oh yeah, we gotta post that picture on this page for sure.
Yeah, it was cool seeing XG. I didn't know he was gonna be there.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know either. I think he performed the Late Show.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, so we missed that, but who we saw, I mean, I was excited about who we saw. It was a good time, and again, shout out to American Comedy Company there in San Diego. I think they were calling these shows like protest shows, and that's kind of how they were able to kind of skirt around the legality of it just due to all these times.
If they want to send me a sticker, that'd be rad, because I accidentally threw mine away and I was pissed about it afterwards.
Yeah.
I do have my whoopee cushion, but I would have really liked that sticker. So if anyone has an American Comedy Club sticker they want to give me, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt good just to be, they said on their website and everything, enforcing the mask policy. I had my bandana around my neck, showed him my ID, and like walked right in over the sidewalk. Yeah, I forgot to mention this was outside on the middle of the sidewalk, so that's why I'm saying this was not a normal thing. It was like very unique, and like you had people walking by just on the street, families walking by, motorcycles revving their engine and stuff, and yeah, it was a very unique experience, but it still felt good to kind of get out and do something, normal or whatever.
Yeah, it was cool. It was pretty badass. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. And, the price of the tickets were pretty cheap, and then I mean they make you buy the combo box or whatever, but I got mine for like $30, which is not bad for it was an hour and a half of comedy or whatever, and then that also supports the local business, and then I had to support Sam with buying some merch and all that. Just he puts out a ton of free content that we enjoy and all that, so it's good to support those, and especially the business here in San Diego. So I thought it was a win-win for everybody involved,
Yeah, and he was really cool. We told him that we are starting up our own shit, and we listened to him. That's kind of where we started the idea, and now we're doing it. He was super, super supportive for no fucking reason other than like, we're part of the same tribe, so he's down to support us. I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, and so that gives me the perfect segue to everybody listening. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's build these numbers up so we can get Sam on as a guest and everything, or go on to his platform, and because that's been we've talked about it, like that's kind of where we see ourselves, as being guests on like his show and within that community, you know what I mean? And to have that kind of already be in the works, it's just kind of us doing the groundwork and being consistent and finding our way. And yeah, that's kind of, it was definitely cool. And I know a little bit about Sam's history, where he kind of he's helped out a ton of comedians, up and comers and all that. He's taken them on the road, and he's very about that type of thing. He's giving and just really humble, and we saw it just in that brief little exchange, and just how willing he is to help those out, and it is pretty awesome. And I know we've had our criticisms about him, especially with the whole Dalia thing and everything, but it does seem like he was kind of right, and things kind of calmed down with that, and you know what I mean? So I kind of understand his frustration on it, but I was just saying it was interesting how everybody in that whole scene was kind of quiet for initial like week to 2 weeks or so, and then they started coming out saying some stuff. But yeah, I mean, I gotta call it how it is. Like, I called him out, but like I'll still go and support him,
Yeah, and I think he's onto something with like Rogan's kind of going independent almost.
Yeah,
And it seems like they're trying to hit people around him. I
definitely.
think, yeah, I think the more time goes on, the more that seems to be falling into place. It's a good theory.
Yeah,
Um, Plus, Sam's conspiracy brain. He knows what's up. He knows what to look for. He knows what stands out.
yeah.
But yeah, that was fucking. It was really cool to see somebody listen to almost daily up in front of you, 10 feet away, talking about fucking kicking your cat and stuff.
Your cat. I know you were a part of it.
Cat.
And then I was a part of it too. Everybody calls me Jesus and stuff, so that was no different. It was like a cheap little, very, very original Sam, but but yeah, no, that was funny. He's like, I'll kick Clyde right in the face.
Yeah. I'm that boy.
That was funny.
Was fun.
Yeah, so that was good. Shout out to American Comedy Company, Sam Tripoli, Tino Sanchez, Zane Helberg, Colin Walsh, and Prozac Nathan. All of those were. It was a good night for sure. But that gets us into our main topic, and dude, this was just brought to my attention the other day from my brother. They wanted to go on a hike, and they were doing some research. He brought it up to me, and holy shit, man. What the heck is going on with Elfin Forest, Quest Haven, and that whole area? This is a trip.
Yeah, so I've known about this place forever. I mean, forever. Like, I've been around and, like, I've heard about it and not much more than it's haunted. And I'm like, yeah, fucking everything's haunted. Okay, sure, whatever. Yeah. But never really given it much thought. I know my girl and I have hiked around Elfin Forest. It was during the day. We had the dog. Like, it was, it was like a nice hike. It wasn't anything big. But then when you brought it up as a possible topic, I was like, okay, like, that, for sure. Like, let's dig. Let's see where these stories started, what happened, where it came from, why we believe what we do, whatever. I threw it out on my personal Instagram, like, what do you all know about Quest Haven?
Yeah.
And our boy Edgar responded and said, haunted, has to do with Native Americans, has to do with insane asylum, the same stuff that we have been seeing. And then my boy Brian, I think he's a big MAGA guy, it's safe to say, he's fun. Same shit, so like, asking people, we're all kind of hearing the same shit, but I don't think anyone's actually delved into it and kind of looked around to see what's going on. Dude. Where do you want to start? Because I have, some of the things I read about relate to other things that I know or that I've seen. So
okay.
That's kind of, yeah.
So how I have it, I read a few different articles. So, I mean, we can start with Quest Haven as the retreat center, the history of that and what's sitting on it now. And then we can go through the different theories of the mental hospital, insane asylum, and then also native burial grounds. And then there's other myths dealing with, the owl and the witch and stuff like that. So kind of however you want to go. I took notes on kind of everything. So kind of wherever you want to start. What's that?
Let's go in the order you have from the beginning, and I'll probably take us off into other random directions. You'll bring us back.
Sounds good. First off, just doing some quick research into the Quest Haven. It's like this Christian mysticism retreat center. But first, looking into it, it completely reminded me of the show that you first told me about, The Path on Hulu. And it almost made me feel like, because in The Path they mentioned San Diego a lot, and I know there's Heaven's Gate that was here, but this is also here and way more relevant to today and almost fits exactly what The Path was all about and that whole kind of thing. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting tie, and maybe that's what they're alluding to in The Path, because one, I had never heard of this, and then I remember hearing about Heaven's Gate, but it almost seemed like it could have been a stretch with that, but it's just interesting that we here in San Diego have these kind of things, I do find that interesting. But anyway, Quest Haven, it is a 655-acre retreat. Flower, who is the lady that founded it, was 31 along with her husband Lawrence, and they were embarking upon the great mission and adventure of their lives. They became pioneers both physically and spiritually as they uh, reverently and selflessly set out to establish all that we see here today. At these words of at the dedication service in the Oak Grove Sanctuary on August 4th, 1940, Flower pronounced these words of consecration. And now, in the awareness of what we do, we reverently bequeath Quest Haven to the Christ forever. Um, so this was another interesting thing. Just with some of the so their Christian mysticism, the Christ Word Ministry is a non-denominational Christian training center dedicated to sharing the influence of the Christ throughout the world and to teaching individuals the art of living the abundant life through the daily application of the Christ way. It does not seek to establish a sect or creed. It has no memberships, but strives to reveal unity in the diversity of all faiths or paths to God. It believes that when the Christ spirit can be made a vital part of our existence, its influence will unify, heal, and transform world conditions.
So, I'm gonna step in a little
Yeah.
bit because shit sounds fucking awesome to me. Growing up, I grew up, going to church, super Christian, Episcopalian, specifically, which is kind of like it's been joked at as like Catholic light. Like,
Yeah.
we're the same.
You told me about that, yeah.
Yeah, you can drink beer and the priest can get married and have kids. Like, don't trip too much. So anything that sprouts off of Christianity or goes in direct conflict with Christianity is like super appealing to me because that's kind of where my background is. And this semi reminds me of I was actually just talking to a dude up in Portland about Christian Science because I don't really know what that is. So I was asking him, he gave me some information, and it sounds like back in the day there were these Christians that were like, whoa, like when you heal somebody, you can't really see it happening. What else goes on that we can't see, but that affects us on a daily level? So that seems to me like a gateway to mysticism, right? Like the whole unseen property, the unseen dimensions, how to manipulate that, how to not get trapped there, how to open doors or close doors. So that's interesting. And it also kind of reminds me about Rosicrucians, which I think toward the end of this conversation I want to come back to. But just so people know, this isn't new Christianity mixed with mysticism or delving more into what's going on right in front of our eyes that we can't see. So when I read that, I was very, very interested because you don't see it often, but it's for sure underneath that Christian umbrella of belief system. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was. They have where is it? They have private cottages, a residence hall, meeting hall, church, labyrinth, and nature trails that are all available year round for group parties and individual retreats. And I just thought this was interesting. Guests should come prepared to pursue their own retreat program of up to 2 weeks. Guests bring their own food and do their own cooking and housekeeping. Linens and towels are furnished. But then I was looking. It's like you have to call them to inquire about booking. Like there's no information online about how to book. And then it says the private cottages are already occupied. And it's just really kind of interesting, I thought.
That's weird. I wonder if it's like no, you can rent something here, but they're all taken right now.
Exactly.
So they fall under some category of, maybe like the positives of having something to rent, but they're already renting out to their friends, so they don't actually have to let anybody new in. And it also kind of sounds like what some people refer to or experience as like a walkabout where they just go out into the jungle or in nature for a while and fucking smoke some peyote and see how they can connect to nature,
Yeah.
or even going back to the path, hanging out with a shaman in a whole different part of the world with a whole different mindset as far as like those drugs go. Also, I think is the tactic of mysticists to try and show you a different angle of the world. And I like, cure for depression, cure for anxiety, like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Very cool. We should try to get a cottage for sure.
I think it's really interesting. What's also extremely interesting, because it is this Christian, retreat center, and out of all of Elfin Forest, which I believe is like 700 acres, they own like 650 something acres of it, so they own a vast majority of it. And I believe it connects Escondido, San Marcos. I have it written right here. Ramona, Escondido, Encinitas, Del Mar, San Diego, and like San Marcos. I think not all of those cities were what they were back in the day, so I think that's kind of why they left some out. But some of the names within this area, Quest Haven, Spooks Canyon or Spooky Canyon, Elfin Forest, which translates in Spanish to the end. You have Harmony Grove, and you can take Avenida del Diablo, which translates to Avenue of the Devil, to get out of there. So just kind of weird words, weird kind of, weird spiritual stuff kind of going on. Just even in the street names,
Yeah, or the name that they gave it, Quest Haven, the Church of the Holy Quest. What if someone asked you, what's the Holy Quest, what would you say? What do you think the Holy Quest is?
I would have no idea.
I would, like, on a tangible level, probably like some Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of shit. But when I read that, I was like, dude, they're talking about enlightenment, right? They're talking about ascending that ladder, right? About connecting with God, connecting with a higher source, right? Like that's what I thought, and that ties into Christianity and the occult.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was reading that the route, Spook Canyon, that linked Ramona, Escondido, Encinitas, Del Mar, and San Diego, were on a spur line from the main Tulsa route to Los Angeles. So it's just interesting how there's a connection just straight to Los Angeles. Like there's this straight route, like this was a hub, and then it was supposed to go straight to Los Angeles. So there has to be some sort of tie into that, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would assume so as well. And you like back in the day, big hubs like that were, I want to say, rife with opportunity for like robbery or stealing or murder. You know what I mean? Like murder, like stuff like back in the day. Stagecoaches and then trains only went to so many different places. So when everybody met up, it was an opportunity for shenanigans. And I think human shenanigans play into what we perceive as creepy or weird or spooky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it leaves some sort of an imprint or like a video that your subconscious can watch or rewind or kind of tap into. Some people, not everyone. I think some people can.
Yeah. So then we have the mental hospital theory. So this is kind of where things get like really interesting. There are theories of an insane asylum. Oh God, I feel like Stephen Woods right here. He had this same flub on this same exact an insane asylum. Man, that's hard to say.
Was he wearing a mask? Maybe that's what.
No, this was before that.
Okay.
There's theories of an insane asylum burning down and I guess there tends to be maybe some truth to this. I guess Flower Newhouse, the lady who founded Quest Haven, used to house patients with mental disabilities in the 1940s. And during this time, there was a fire in portions of the retreat that burned down. There are no reports of people dying, but people did say that there was a fire. Um,
And
one,
that's it. But like, quite honestly, if she was just housing people with disabilities, they probably weren't on the books a whole lot anyway. So
yeah,
if a few of them, like back then, they treated people with disabilities like shit.
yeah.
Like families didn't want them. They're like, get this fucking kid out of here, get this adult out of here. So if a few of them did happen to die in a fire, there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of like actual tangible evidence for us to back that.
Uh-huh.
So I tend to think that that's plausible.
Okay. One of the members of the Quest Haven retreat tells this person that wrote this article that the rumors of where the actual insane asylum once was more near the intersection of Harmony Grove and Quest Haven Road. There were allegedly old ruins that remained there for many years that were eventually removed. After analyzing historical aerials of that intersection, nothing is showing up until the 80s. So it kind of, remains a myth because there is no factual proof of this. There is this weird, like, abandoned building. When I was looking it up, there was a couple of YouTube videos on it and stuff, and there was this abandoned building, but it sounds like this isn't what that was. And I was also reading in a different article, I didn't write it down, but they were saying that there is no evidence that a fire ever did take place, and that there was that there was a fire, but it was from a potato frying thing and something like that. So, dude, that's what I'm saying. This whole thing is a little weird because there's a lot of like weird information or misinformation or not like so many different sides to this. When I was looking this up, I thought it was gonna be, oh, this is just crazy. Like this is, just some like weird, people are just making this up or whatever. But man, there's some like weird, even stuff with like news articles that were reporting on some of this stuff. Like it just doesn't really make sense. Like there should be reporting of fires and for there to be confusion of if a fire did happen or not. I just find that really strange.
That is weird, and it would have been in the 40s,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's not that's not an eternity ago. Like they were
No.
reporting stuff, they were keeping records of shit. You know what I mean? Like we can go back and get that information for almost anything else pretty easily. Like I have magazines older than that in the
Yeah.
garage. Um, so I tend to think it's real. I tend to think that there was a fire and she was housing people with disabilities. I'm gonna veer off a little bit here, then we'll come back. And this should be its own episode, I think. The Rosicrucian Church in Oceanside. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
But it had the same shit growing up because I went to school right down the street from it. Haunted. There's a cult there. There's religious elements there. It was super weird and trippy, and no one knew what was going on. We'd go walk around at night and, fucking smoke cigarettes and drink and get tripped out, but never saw anything. But then when I got older, I started to actually do a little bit of research. Where the Rosicrucian land is now, it's actually overlooking the 76. If you're ever up to 76, you see that big, like, kind of dome-shaped church building.
Hmm.
That's the Rosicrucian property. They have a whole chunk of it over there. These dudes, not only are Rosicrucians constantly tied back to, like, the Knights Templar and Christian mysticism and using certain symbols and codes that are occult, but they're pretending that it's Christian. So, like, it's always tied into that shit. They're a big, weird question mark. But it became to be, it wasn't it was land that some religious dude bought back in, like, I want to say the early 1900s, maybe the 1920s, and he same idea from as Flower got a bunch of people with disabilities, mental illness, and was like, I'm going to use the power of Christ to fix all of them, and he couldn't. Like they required different things or additional things. And then after that, after he couldn't fix them with God, he turned everything else into a church. Except for that, it was an insane asylum. And it all went to shit. Nobody knew how to take care of these people. People fucking died. It was like terrible. And it kind of reminds me of where they, it may have been partial where they got the idea for the second season of Horror Story, because that
Yeah.
was also a church run insane asylum kind of a deal that ended up in weird shit. So the Rosicrucians over there are weird. That legitimately used to be an insane asylum because somebody was trying to heal people with mental illness with faith, which sounds like that was what Flower was trying to do.
Yeah.
Big chunk of land early on trying to heal people with mental illness with faith before knowing like exactly what mental illness was and how to even address it. And again, ties in with that weird Christianity mysticism divide that they were both trying to flirt kind of around the same time.
Yeah.
So
So
I
what
would
do you
find
feel what do you feel about there not being any proof of a building or anything like that? Because, you know,
yeah.
that should be on record of it being built, because all of their other buildings have been on record, you know what I mean? So why would that one not? Or was it, yeah, was it this completely hidden separate thing that they were just trying to keep underground? Or
I mean, it
so
could have been.
would you think that that is still going on there? Or is that all cleaned up?
I think that's all gone.
Okay.
I think if there were any remnants of it, it's gone. Maybe the fire was a controlled demolition, and they're like, there was no fire here. You guys are tripping. We saw smoke. No, you didn't. By the way,
Mm,
there's no more buildings here anymore. You know, like, I mean, people build stuff every day now, not up to code with permits, and so technically it's not on the books.
yeah.
But, you know, that it could be that, or it could be that it never existed and it's fabricated, or it could have been that Flower brought people over with mental health issues and was like, we're going to fucking hang out in nature. And that's how we're going to solve all this stuff. And so there were no buildings, but she was still trying to do that. You know, like it could be like a weird combo of the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And then just like I said, the fact that there's kind of this weird misinformation about the fire is just really kind of interesting. And yeah, I was like, oh man, this is bullshit. So the fire was fake. And then I read another thing that was like, no, it's real. I was like, man, I don't know what to believe with this. I have to like really, I didn't have time to like really look into fires and all of that and dates and all of that. I will, that is something to, you know, maybe go back and look into. But it is, I just thought this whole thing was really interesting. You read stuff about the native burial ground or no?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
All right.
So we'll okay. I'm going to leave the precursor out, but I was reading that there were the northern, I don't know how to pronounce it, Dieguinho
Yeah.
Indians, um, and then the other inhabitants or natives of this area were the Lucenio Indians, and apparently the Lucenio were regarded as mystics, like they were into that kind of stuff, whereas the Dieguinho, pardon my friend, were more into like tangible, what was in front of you, what can we do here and now, and the Lucenio were all about trying to see the unseen and cross that border and kind of dealt with that whole thing to the point where they would, this is trippy. I don't know if you read this or not. They had ceremonies for the boys, I'm assuming, to become like, you know, men, similar to how like Jewish people do, or Sweet 16 or whatever. That's girls, I guess. But during their ceremonies for the boys to become men, they would use ginseng weed, which I've heard is like a crazy, crazy trip.
Yeah.
But also, these dudes use that shit like not necessarily medicinally, but like for spiritual medicine. So who knows what exactly? I don't. I feel like I don't have enough time to look into every aspect of it, because now I want to see what were they doing spiritually. What was their goal spiritually? Like they were here, they were on this land that's allegedly haunted now, using weed, trying to connect, or not weed, ginseng weed, trying to connect and trying to figure out the space around them. What did they find? What were they into specifically? Uh, but that was the most interesting part for me about the natives and kind of what was going on with them.
Yeah, so what I had written down, it says the area is rumored to have once have been inhabited by gypsies and their social kin at the turn of the 19th century and well into the 20th century. Legend has it that other natives and residents from neighboring communities came in and drove off the gypsies, slaughtering those who stood in their way. In turn,
Right.
the gypsies cursed the elfin forest and its surrounding lands. Apparently, it was this curse that has caused many of the urban legends and paranormal activity that has been reported throughout the years. Coincidentally, there are also accounts of the northern Diego Indians, again, my bad on the Spanish, who once inhabited this land dating back 9,000 years ago. So there definitely is, some validity to it being native land. Whether the gypsy thing is true or not, that's all kind of speculation. But what do you think about that whole thing, the gypsy thing, and them kind of inhabiting this elfin forest, which is kind of this mystical type thing, gypsy feel, and then kind of being drove away? I could see something like, if that's what you believe in, them putting a curse on the land, like that would kind of make sense.
Yeah, I agree. This was kind of my favorite part of it. It kind of seems like this area's origin story because we'll get into it in a little bit, but the witch part of it, I couldn't find anything before gypsy time. So to me, it seems like the gypsies are a good place to start because that's when shit started to splinter and there's misinformation and there's different stories.
Yeah.
And everything's prepared.
So what year, so it's 19th century, so that's like 1900s to what? It says early 20th century?
So that would be like cowboy times, like late 1800s, early 1900s.
1800s, 1900s, okay.
Yeah, post Civil War West Coast.
Huh. That's really interesting. Yeah, what was going on over here during that time?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like this was all native land. This was all Mexican land. So, and those Mexicans. Speaking as someone with Mexican blood. Like we like our fucking Christianity. We like our religious system, and the natives were using ginseng weed and peyote. Like there is a lot spiritually going on in this area. Like,
yeah.
I want to see more so than the East Coast because I was just taken over by puritanicals, and there's a lot of killing and shit. But over here, like, we were fucking experimenting. We were in the ocean and in the woods trying to figure stuff out.
I almost wonder if, like, that's where some of the witches or whatever from the East Coast made their way over here, and then that's kind of where this all started. Like, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And not to delve too much on like the actual witch thing, but I put a lot of stock in all the druids from Europe coming over here and infecting us and our society. So I would venture to guess they came from the East and went west.
Yeah.
Just like the cowboys. But with the gypsies specifically, so this is my favorite part. Like I said, this seems to be like the origin story. They came to that area. They kind of set up camp. They were doing their own thing, and like people were aware. From what I was reading, people were aware, but they were like sketch, but like whatever, like hang on over there. And then after a while, these gypsies started to kind of mingle with like the locals, with the natives, and from what it sounds like is there were like natives, like Native Americans, like Indians, and then there were residents, which I'm sure were like the more cowboy people, and that more commerce kind of a thing, kind of a feel. So they managed to fucking set up red flags with both groups of people, just like on all sides, to the point where they got driven out. But before then, rumors started to kind of circulate. They would start to mingle with the locals and the natives, and stories started to go around that these dudes were on this land, the gypsies were on this land, doing like seances and doing rituals. And there was, I guess, a piece of this land where natives had buried some children upright. I don't know what that indicates. I didn't get a chance to go into all of that.
Jeez.
But allegedly, some natives had, and I've heard of that too. I've heard of that, I want to say in Japan at one point. So there's something to it. But allegedly, the natives buried their children upright. And this is the same land that the gypsies chose to do their seances and their rituals, which is fucking weird and not coincidental at all. And they allegedly had like an area where they had put like basically rocks in concentric circles. And then this ties me back. I'm gonna go ahead and segue to the fucking infamous Stephen King. Somebody I've read since I was too young to actually read. My dad used to read them to me at nighttime stories, and now I've discovered he's totally part of the elite. He's one of them. He's not a good guy, but in his stories, he puts a lot of fucking truth.
Yeah.
So, the concentric circles, the native burial grounds, seances, all that sort of weird shit is 100% reminding me of Pet Cemetery. If you haven't read or seen Pet Cemetery, this is basically what's going on. It's these old, ruined, badlands where the natives used to live. They had these concentric circles going outward, spiraling outward, like the outward flow of civilization. And in Pet Cemetery, anyway, this land was used to bring dead things back to life. They weren't the same. It was all fucked up. Your cat dies, you put your cat in the ground, it comes back a fucking asshole. You know,
yeah.
But it gets life. It's like the Lazarus pit. It fucking comes back, which is super weird. It also reminds me, gypsies specifically, because there's something to gypsies in that they were nomads with all of this, I want to say, spiritual intellect, or at least practice of spiritual intellect. In the sequel to The Shining, Doctor Sleep, again written by Stephen King, he talks of a group called the True Knot. And the True Knot is basically a band of fucking gypsies, present day. They have like old beat up campers and bigger vehicles and stuff like that. And they go utilize campgrounds because they don't hang out in hotels. They're kind of off the books. They don't use credit cards. Like they're just fucking vagabond vagrants, except in Doctor Sleep, these gypsies live off of adrenochrome, basically. They go find kids with psychic abilities, they torture the fuck out of them, and then they they don't drink their blood. They inhale the kids' steam to sustain themselves. They're like 400 or 500 years old. Jeez. These guys. Yeah, it's intense and it's very, very weird. And if you read it as somebody who knows about this stuff, it makes way too much sense. But that's what these gypsies about this land remind me of. They were doing some similar shit. They were pissing off people. You know, like, yeah, San Diego's kind of like, or used to be like, if you're not local, get out of here. But not back then.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, for the natives and the, like, townsfolk to not like you, like, you're pissing off people that already don't really like each other. And they're coming together to run you out of town. Like, there's something to be said there. I definitely want to look more into it, more about the gypsies of this area from that time, maybe, or what their religious practices were.
That's what I'm saying, man. I thought this was gonna be just like a interesting little topic, but once I started looking into it, it sprouts off kind of all over, and I was like, there is way too much for just an hour. Like, this is crazy.
And it's weird that, like everything else we study, is if you get to the root of it, it's not smoke and mirrors. It goes back to the fucking occult.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that good and evil fight.
Yeah.
Like everything else. And I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I kind of feel like we should go do like an on-site kind of a thing.
That's what I'm saying, dude. We need to go there. I've seen people drive up to the gates and they were let in, so it's like, might as well go try, dude, and like go scope out the grounds of Quest Haven. Maybe go hit a trail, a hiking trail or something like that. But yeah, I think that's definitely something we need to plan to do. But there's a couple other things I wanted to get to. There's a couple other myths and things like that. One of them, there's this tale of like this 10 to 14 foot white owl that roams the midnight moonlight sky. The ghostly owl sneaks about, preying on naive young people who enter the forest. It says if the visitors are in their car, the owl lands atop of the car and possesses several, or lands on top of the car. What the fuck? And possesses several ways of murdering the vehicle's passenger. So that's interesting. If the visitors are on foot, it swoops down to capture them and sacrifices them. There are other stories about the owl, however, many don't speak of it in fear of, repercussion. Some of it sounds like bullshit, But I don't know.
But it's funny, and I don't think it should be overlooked that where else do we know about an owl and a possible sacrifice?
No, dude,
But
that's what's really interesting because it is an owl. And are you talking about like Bohemian Grove
I'm
or?
talking about Bohemian
Yeah.
Grove.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting because I've seen, just looking it up, there was a couple of pictures of Quest Haven and there was the symbol of the owl and stuff. So it is very interesting. So it does lead to this, there being an owl. I just don't see an owl fucking going into someone's car and picking someone out of their car. I just don't see that happening. Maybe I am the naive one, and maybe I need to go check it.
Or it's an amalgamation of stories, or it's what they want us to think.
Mm-hmm.
They want us to think it's a big ass owl taking people and sacrificing when it's fucking people ripping people from cars.
That makes sense. Yeah, using it under the guise of this owl, and that's just the symbol of like the Bohemian Grove. That
like
yeah,
Bohemian Grove,
yeah,
dude. And for those who don't know, I'll do a quick little thing. In Bohemian Grove, this area in Northern California where politicians and celebrities and world leaders alike meet yearly as a males only club, underneath the, I believe, 40-foot statue of an owl known as the deity Minerva that is often associated with child sacrifice. And they admittedly in Bohemian Grove do what's called the cremation of care ritual,
yeah.
where they sacrifice not a real person to this deity. This is what Nixon was doing in the summertime. These are what presidents were doing in the summertime.
And we know this. You say what you want about the guy or not, but you have to thank Alex Jones, man. You have to, because he was the one. I mean, I don't know if it's legitimate, whatever, if he truly infiltrated it, if he was let in under this, let's finally expose this, whatever. Who knows what it was. But he is the one that kind of had this information and had this video out that kind of led us to witness what was truly going on there and how guarded it was and things like that. So that's what I mean. It seems like it could have been a setup where this was his initiation into the elite, where it's like, you're gonna play the game now. Now you're witnessing the sacrifice, the mock sacrifice and all that, but we're gonna make people aware, and now we're gonna kind of use you or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't really know, but you do have to kind of give him credit for exposing the footage that we have seen of it.
Yeah, and it's weird that what we're seeing is actually, before I do that, I didn't find any specific instances, but I've also read that there are reports of bleeding trees.
Yeah.
And people seeing Indians hanging from trees, which is fucking weird because that. Let's just say somebody saw that, right? And it wasn't real. There wasn't an actual body hanging from there. Maybe it was like pictures in a book where they saw back in time for whatever reason, right? Stick with me. Hanging Indians from trees is not typically what the white folk were doing back then.
Yeah.
They were gunning them down because they were all gunslingers. So who was hanging Indians in the trees and why? You know what I mean? Like, hanging is something to have been kind of ritualistic, you know what I mean? Or slowly watching the life. Like, there's a lot of different things that have popped up from hanging, and that could be tied to the gypsies and their rituals more so than the other people that we know were in the area at the time. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's really interesting. And even the witch. What did you find out about the witch?
Okay, so yeah, we have about 10 minutes left, and this was the last thing that I had written down. So I'll just read what was written. It says, this myth of the witch that haunts the elfin forest. Stories of the witch solicit extreme caution should one choose to enter the forest, for hers is the deadliest and scariest of stories. The witch has been in the forest since the persecution of the gypsies. Interesting. She rides the roads of the forest of a ghostly black stallion with the black cloak that covers her face and body. The witch has an omnipotent vision and sense when a stranger or intruder has entered the forest. It is said that once someone enters the forest in Quest Haven, the witch marks that person, leaving no physical indication but more of a spiritual mark. Once marked by the witch, that person faces death if he or she ever enters the forest again. Those who claim to have seen the witch say they did not hear her galloping stallion, and that instead the witch and her horse float along in the shadows. Never in clear sight, her victims will never really know what they see when they witness her. It is also rumored that by chance the victims do see her eyes as they pierce a ray of green light, that they are immediately killed. Oh man, it sounds like a mix of bullshit and yeah, it's really interesting and fascinating, and there is just a real interesting tie into this witch, gypsy, Native American whole tie-in mixed with some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, come on, green ray, light, instantly dead, and you're cursed if you ever go back to the forest again. Let's try it out, man. I'm down to fucking try it out. Let's fucking go to the forest and then go back to the forest.
Well, I've been there, so this will be my second time back. So
well, let's go.
Yeah. I'm walking into
or let me go first and then let's go back together. Yeah.
Okay, we figured it out. So my brain goes in two different directions, right? Okay, the witch with the green eyes, where like kind of reminds me of the green flash of the sunset that pirates say they see that I've never seen, but there's even beer named after it today.
Green flash,
maybe
yeah.
Something with, maybe there's an allegory there about looking into the sun and looking into her eyes, looking into the sun, and it's alleged that in The Wizard of Oz, they put in Satan is sunlight backwards underneath all of our heads. Maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. But it also reminds me of, I've told this story before, when my dad was a kid, my grandparents took him to a gypsy to go, I don't know, get their fortunes told. My grandpa was looking for something spiritual. And I don't know what, but he was out there poking around like we are, kind of.
Yeah.
But he had to go through all the bullshit. Like, all this stuff that we know is bullshit, he was entertaining it as real because they didn't have the internet. So they took my dad, who was a kid, to this gypsy's house. He was fucking around. She didn't like him. And he said he remembers her looking at her very sternly, and he was like, oh, shit, fuck. And then on the way home, he saw a UFO, like, out of the window. And when he went to go tell my grandma, the UFO disappeared. So he correlates that with this gypsy woman and then seeing a fucking UFO.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if we're saying gypsies are tied to the occult, and I think aliens are just like demons or fallen angels, like, there's some overlap there. That's pretty weird. Maybe this fucking entity that we assume is a witch is malevolent in nature, right? And I've seen, or I've heard in stories of a presence knowing when their land is being like fucked with, or when someone comes to that land. Or even, again, to back a horror story, which bases a lot of stuff in things that we think we know, in Roanoke, the ghosts, like, if you're killed there, you can't leave the property.
Yeah.
And they, like, kind of know, they're like, oh, so-and-so's here. Like, they know when someone steps foot on the property. So, I mean, you can't base that in fucking reality, I understand. But I feel like the important thing to focus on is what we're seeing here is stories that we see everywhere else.
Yeah.
We've seen fucking sacrifices and an owl. We've seen gypsies fucking shit up. We've seen native grounds being disturbed and there being weirdness afterward. You know, like, we've seen these things, we've heard about these things, and all of these things just happen to happen to this one spot in San Diego, and it's fucking weird.
And the fact that it's like owned by one group of thing, and you know, people can't really go, I'm assuming, go explore it because it's on private land. It's 650 something acres of land that they own, and they have all these buildings and stuff, and it's this retreat center. But like I said, when I looked up the rooms, you have to call to inquire, and then the cottages were already booked up. So there is definitely some strange things going on with it. I do think we need to go check it out, because it is so close, and I think that, you know, that would be a great video, like,
yeah,
getting real footage. And you know, if we get in, maybe we can, you know, you're very, I don't want to say confrontational, but but you can talk to people. I'm more like reserved. You are more outgoing and can talk to people. And once conversation gets going, I can talk to people too, but I am hesitant to, you know, go break the ice to people. But Yeah, man, if we could like talk to some of these people in the retreat center, I think that would be fascinating, and then just get some footage of the grounds and stuff. I mean, I just think this whole thing is really interesting. I thought it was gonna be just some weird things, but man, it actually goes pretty deep.
Debunk. Yeah, I love it. I'm so much more interested in it. I'm glad you decided we should do a show on it, because now I'm in. I'm so in. Two last things before we go. I believe one of the little, not towns, one of the little living areas that borders Elfin Forest, Crest Haven, whatever, was specifically planned to be kind of like a no-car town, in that everything is within walking distance. The living, the high school, the gas station.
Are you talking about San Alejo?
Yeah, that borders it, right?
Yeah.
Or is that? Yeah. So
it's a weird town, bro. Like, I lived right on San Marcos, in these like low-income housing apartments with my dad back in the day, and San Alejo was just being built up, dude. It feels like this cartoon town. It's so weird.
Yes. It is really weird. Actually, some lady Valerie knows how to plan it, so like I kind of want to ask her questions, but I'm pretty sure it's there. I'll have to double check.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but in this little freaky, it looks like a little freaky town, kind of like a toon town. It feels like they have like a little kind of a grass area, and like not a pergola, but like a little place to go sit under or whatever. But if I remember correctly, they have a fucking obelisk like in the middle of this cemented and then grass area, kind of like the focal point of this little rest area, and the obelisk is always stands out to me. And if that's what's in this town, why?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that it's in close proximity to where all this other occult shit is going down.
Yeah.
When the obelisk itself is a big symbol of occultism.
Yeah, man, this whole...
And I read that there's still psychics and occult practitioners that hang out there and want to talk to people about this shit. And I'm like, bullshit. I will fucking, not that I know more, but if they're bullshitting, I will know that they're bullshitting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, let's do it. Let's figure out a time, and let's actually go try and maybe talk to some surrounding people from the area, and then actually go to Quest Haven and really try and figure some stuff out. I mean, I'm sure they get these types of people kind of all the time, so I'm sure they follow a script and know exactly what to say. But like you say, you know bullshit, and I know bullshit, and we can kind of call them out and actually maybe get a good conversation going, unless they just shut us down if we start prying too much. But I think this would be really fascinating to go do an on the scene type video where we just put some footage together and just at least see how it goes. If not, waste a couple hours of the day, but it could lead to something really interesting.
Yeah, I'll grab some holy water and we'll have to go for sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of it. We got about 2 minutes left, about a minute and a half. Yeah, anything you want to close on? Final thoughts? Anything like that?
No final thought. I mean, we for sure need to go to this place. Yeah. I think we need to do a follow-up episode, at least one or two. And this makes me want to branch off to go do a show about the Rosicrucian Church in Oceanside.
Yeah.
And there was one other thing we touched on too that I was like, it sparks up so many other ideas. But for sure, we need to do Rosicrucian because I think there's a lot of similar elements, and of course, geographically, they're pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I haven't heard about that one. Send me the spelling of that because I don't even know how to pronounce or spell that. But yeah, this was really interesting. Definitely more to go into. Let's plan on going there. And again, shout out Sam Tripoli and all the comics and the American Comedy Company for letting us not wear a mask and that be around people. It felt really good. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This will be up on YouTube tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Tune into the Real Word podcast. Drew and Chase side by side. We will be doing new episodes soon. And Tuesday Morning Tokes, which is out now. And that is about it. Just text me the name of that so we can get into the next topic and everything. So. All right. Until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.